Hey girlfriends, can we talk a little bit about attorney's fees? I'm sure it's something that you're wondering, and I think I have a lot of answers that can help you at least understand how attorney's fees work in a family law case. So basically, there are only three ways that attorneys can bill clients. We can take cases on a flat fee, so X number of dollars for this type of case. You pay $5,000 for appearing in a particular kind of hearing. We can take them on a contingency fee, which means that we don't take a fee, we take a portion of the overall settlement. Or we can do what family lawyers do, which is work on retainers and bill hourly as work is done. So in general, family law attorneys, like I've said, work on retainers, but why do we do that? In most states, like in Virginia, it's considered unethical for us to take cases on a contingent fee. That's something that you're going to see in personal injury cases mostly, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's the whole, no fee unless we get money for you. Nothing, we are not going to charge you unless we win. And those are different kinds of cases than divorce cases. In most cases, we're not talking about winning and losing quite the same way as in a personal injury case. We're not suing an insurance company with really deep pockets. We don't have, in most cases, except some domestic violence cases, we don't have, physical injuries and an insurance company that's on the hook for paying for those injuries. We just have a married couple who have to separate out their assets, liabilities, and responsibilities. And the reason why that's considered unethical, I'm sure you can understand if you really think about it, is personal injury attorneys usually take anywhere between 30 and 40% of the total overall settlement at the end of a case. And in a divorce, how would we calculate that? We can't take 30% of the marital estate or the value of the marital property, right? And especially you can have two attorneys doing that. And even at a lesser fee, even if we're talking 5% or 10% of the marital assets, it becomes a question of, well, is that even a reasonable fee? 10%, 5% of most people, what they've, accumulated during the marriage, if we're looking at retirement and the houses they've invested in, it just ends up being a really ungodly fee, not to mention really difficult to calculate. And you still have the problem then of people with low net worth or negative net worth. There are those divorces where we're only dividing debt, where they maybe couldn't get representation if that were the model. But it's mostly just that it falls apart when you try to apply those principles to family law cases. So that really only leaves flat fee billing and retainer billing. And flat fee billing is generally something that is hard for family lawyers to do because we don't know ahead of time exactly how complicated the case is going to be. It's one thing to say, well, I charge this amount of money to drop a will or a trust when I know basically what's involved in that. And it's another thing to say, I can take you to court on X number of dollars when we really don't know. Most of the time when we're talking about, the information that we're able to gather from a client at an initial consultation, exactly what the issues are and how it's all going to work out. I always say that there are a lot of things that we don't know at the beginning. I don't know anything about the husband. I only know what the wife has told me. And in a lot of cases, there's kind of a big mismatch there. I also don't necessarily know the attorney that he's hired or the position that they're going to take on the case. And there definitely are some attorneys who are more aggressive than others who are going to drive up the fee, and knowing that a particular person is on the other side might make me be like, oh, this one is definitely going to be more contentious and more expensive than it would otherwise be had someone else been hired on the other side. So there's a lot that I can tell usually once I kind of get into the case, but that I don't necessarily know at the very, very beginning. So it can be hard to quote a flat fee. So most of us work on retainers. And that means that we charge a flat fee to take a case, and then that money goes into a trust account with the client's name on it, and then we bill from that as work is done. Family lawyers bill hourly. Usually it's a rate based on the market that they're in, their level of expertise, and the reputation of the firm that they're practicing with. But in my area, that ranges somewhere between $300 and $600 an hour. But in major metropolitan areas like New York City, Los Angeles, you're probably going to see family lawyers charging a whole lot more just because that's what the market will bear. So if you're looking at finding an attorney that is affordable, it's tempting to look at the retainer fee because obviously $1 million retainer is going to be impossible for most people to come up with. But if the attorney's hourly hourly rate is competitive, then that's going to be, I think, a better way of gauging exactly how expensive it's going to be to hire and work with that attorney. But it ultimately comes down to hours. How long is the case going to take to resolve? Like, how complicated is it going to be? How contentious is it going to be? And it's just a matter of the number of hours that go into it. When you're looking at attorneys and you're looking at hourly rates and you're trying to decide which attorney is the right attorney for you and who to hire, I would say it is important to look at the hourly rate. It's important to look at the retainer fee, but it's also important to consider the reason that the fee is what it is. So most of the lower priced attorneys in my area are either inexperienced or lacking in resources. And what I mean by that is, brand new attorneys starting out tend to charge a lesser hourly rate, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's saving you money to work with them, because it takes them more hours to figure out exactly what's involved in a case. Whereas a lot of times when you get a more experienced attorney, you get someone who has written a million of those motions, or who has appeared on a number of those types of hearings and can prepare much more quickly and efficiently. So don't forget to take that into account. And not only that, I also think that a low hourly rate is a sign of someone like a solo practitioner, or someone not working with a firm who maybe doesn't have a team of people around her to support her as she practices. So she might just be practicing on her own in isolation, but not necessarily with a paralegal. And a paralegal is something that you want to see. Not that you want the paralegal to be doing all of the work in your case, but in most cases, working with a paralegal is going to save you significantly in terms of time and money, because the other alternative is to have an attorney performing what are essentially paralegal functions. So to the extent that work can be outsourced to a paralegal or to a legal secretary who has a lower hourly rate, or maybe even no hourly rate at all, if they have a receptionist, a secretary, someone filing and making copies and doing things that, aren't necessarily gonna, move the needle forward quite as aggressively in your case, but you don't want to pay an attorney to do that. So there are just a lot of considerations when it comes into what attorney to hire and how to save money on your case. And I wanted to talk a little bit about it just to sort of demystify what we're looking at, and also to give you some questions to ask and some things to look at when you're looking at interviewing and ultimately hiring an attorney to represent you in your family law case.